The Galaxy M51 has to be one of the most powerful mid-range smartphones from Samsung's stables in recent times. It comes with a Snapdragon 730 chip, yes, but it also comes with a Sony IMX682 sensor, making the camera stack a very compelling one, which is why I had to test out the cameras on the Galaxy M51 against the Realme 7 Pro and of course the OnePlus Nord as well. So I'm Ershad from Mr. Phone, and without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the camera comparison and find out which one of these three phones comes out on top. But before we move on, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever Mr. Phone puts out an awesome new tech video. Before I talk about the pictures, take a look at the camera specs of the three phones. The major difference is the OnePlus Nord comes with last year's Sony IMX586 sensor compared to the Realme 7 Pro and the Galaxy M51, both of which make use of the upgraded IMX682 sensor. You can take a look at the rest of the differences in the cameras on the spec sheet while I move on to the comparison samples. Let's start off the comparison by checking the detail retention and the crispness of texture. So the OnePlus Nord captures a 12 megapixel pixel bin sample as opposed to the 16 megapixel samples captured by the Galaxy M51 and the Realme 7 Pro. Right off the bat, you can tell that the M51 and the 7 Pro offer far crisper details at close crop. For example, if you take a look at the 100% crop of the trees on the other side of the road at the center, you will see that the M51 and the 7 Pro offer crisper details. Now move to the road and the trees at the right corner and you will see that the 7 Pro actually looks much sharper than even the M51 here. But yeah, the Nord offers better control over the highlights and doesn't have blown out exposure like the M51 or the 7 Pro. You can also see sharper textures on the 7 Pro sample at the area around the BBTP signboard and the top left corner as well. Essentially, if you want sharp details, the 7 Pro is the way to go, and the cherry at the top is the 7 Pro looks extremely crisp even in the high resolution 64 megapixel capture. Actually, Realme has done a great job with the high res capture now. Once again, move your gaze to the area around the BBTP signboard, then feast your eyes on the sharp lines of the blue water tanks. You will see how good the 7 Pro sample is. The second best is obviously the M51 here, which doesn't lose out by a huge margin. Clearly the Nord struggles here due to the use of an older sensor. Now when it comes to the HDR mode, the 7 Pro picks up more details from the shadows, but I feel it cuts out the contrast, lending to a more flatter look. The OnePlus Nord is too contrast heavy and the M51 is a nice middle ground. But if you take a look at the glasses on the table, you will notice that the M51 does very little to cut out the shadow noise. Technically speaking, the 7 Pro has a more powerful HDR mode, but I know preferences will vary wildly here. Plus we saw a much cleaner overall exposure in the OnePlus Nord in the previous testing samples. So yeah, the dynamic range performance is a toss-up really. While the previous round was a toss-up, I have a clear-cut winner in this round where I'm testing colors. The first set of images of these books stacked up on a bookshelf tells us one thing clearly: the OnePlus Nord tends to oversaturate. Now the Realme 7 Pro does look dull, but that's exactly how the scene looked. I feel Realme could have played up the contrast here a bit, which the M51 does and gets a great result. The M51 is going to be the pick for many folks, but technically Realme is more accurate. And that becomes doubly evident in the second picture, where there is a damning evidence of how the reds are handled. Take a look at the red book and see how the Nord has smeared all the red that just glosses over the finer details. The M51 is slightly better but struggles as well. The 7 Pro is just phenomenal here. Plus the color of the OnePlus buds are represented accurately here. I know that a lot of folks will find the 7 Pro's colors dull and lifeless, but that's actually a natural representation of the scene. The M51 and the Nord will definitely look more attractive because the colors pop out, but what we are looking for here is technical accuracy and not what looks good to your eyes. This was an unsubstantiated complaint from many viewers in my previous Realme 7 Pro comparison, which is why I had to address it. So when we objectively evaluate pictures, it is evident that the image processing algorithm on the Realme 7 Pro creates JPEGs with a natural color reproduction. Whether you like it or not is your personal preference, and if you ask a photographer, they would love the freedom they have on hand to actually tune the color space to their liking. Anyway, moving on to the ultra wide angle samples. All the three cameras have completely botched up the colors in the scene. This is the problem with budget and mid-range phones where manufacturers don't maintain color science consistency. Anyway, the M51 benefits from a higher resolution sensor, which is a 12 megapixel sensor compared to the 8 megapixel units on the other two. And of course, it also has a wider lens. It is definitely the best looking ultra wide angle picture here. Basically, I'm talking about the M51. And the M51 once again trumps the other two in macro mode. You get a higher resolution 5 megapixel macro camera that just looks super sharp. Just look at the difference for yourself. That said, the Realme 7 Pro has the most accurate color here. In portrait shots, the Nord and the 7 Pro offer super crisp details. The M51's algorithm has a tendency to soften the details on the human subjects with some sort of smoothing. However, when it comes to edge detection, Realme does an excellent job. OnePlus botches up a few areas. I like the M51 as well, it looks pretty clean. Overall though, I'm leaning towards the Realme 7 Pro. Now all the good work that Realme did with the Realme 7 Pro, it undid it with its downright embarrassing front camera performance. It always struggles to control the exposure on the face. The first selfie is without HDR on and the OnePlus Nord blows out the white wall in the background. Realme adds an unnatural red pigmentation. Samsung is just the best here. The only advantage with the Nord is that you get a wide angle selfie mode, which is fine. M51 is easily the best camera here. The second selfie is an HDR mode one, and you can clearly tell the M51 just beats the other two raw. No pun intended. What do you folks think? And when it comes to selfie portraits, again, the M51 is just the best here. Look how crisp my face and my eyes look. Plus the blur and the edge detection is fantastic. The Nord is not too bad, but the colors, especially on my shirt, are completely off. Let's not even talk about the 7 Pro here. Now let's talk about the video performance though. All the three phones can shoot up to 4K 30fps video using the rear camera. What I noticed is image stabilization using electronic image stabilization is more or less the same in all the three phones. But when it comes to colors, details, dynamic range performance and sound, the M51 has the best footage. The OnePlus Nord does a good job as far as sound and details are concerned, but the footage looks slightly oversaturated and tends to crush the shadows a lot compared to even the Realme 7 Pro. The Realme 7 Pro struggles with bad audio. Overall, I'll go with the M51 here. 30 fps video using the Galaxy M51. Do let me know in the comment section below what you guys thought about the image quality, the image stabilization, the sound record. Let me know what you thought about the image quality, the image stabilization, the sound recording, and of course the dynamic range, as I'm shooting directly into the light right now. And which one of these phones does dynamic range better is something that you guys can let me know in the comment section. And yeah, what do you guys think of the footage overall? After this, I'm going to be shooting with the M51. When you talk about the front camera, the Nord just has a massive advantage with the option to shoot up to 4K 60 fps video and 4K 30 fps ultra wide angle video. First, let's take a look at the 1080p 30 fps video of the three phones, and you can tell the OnePlus Nord has the better sound quality of the three phones, and the facial tones are the most accurate too. The Realme 7 Pro's footage looks soft. The M51 comes in a close second, and if you ask me, loses out only due to the slightly more detailed footage and slightly better sound quality on the Nord. Shooting a 1080p 30fps video using the Samsung Galaxy M51. Do let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the image quality, the image stabilization. How the image look, how's my face looking against the light right now. As you can see that behind me it's pretty bright, and the light is on my face right now. And how does that look? How are the colors, how are the facial tones, all of those things. Definitely do let me know what you guys think about it. But let's compare the 4K 30fps front camera footage from the M51 and the Nord next, which is possible on these phones but not on the 7 Pro. The Nord has a weird green tint in the video that looks odd, but the details are great and you get EIS as well. Plus the sound recording is better than the M51. And you can also shoot 4K 60fps video plus 4K 30fps video using the ultra wide angle camera on the Nord. The Nord leaves no stone unturned when it comes to video recording using the front camera and is clearly my pick for the best video camera of the three when it comes to front camera. But the M51 manages to strike back with an excellent 4K 30fps ultra wide angle video footage that is the widest of the three plus the most detailed and colorful. The Nord's footage is not bad at all, but it could have been better with noise control in the darker portions. I think the problem is with the underpowered sensor more than anything else. The Realme 7 Pro just struggles very badly with its inferior 1080p footage. Now in indoor shots, all the three are equally good and picking one winner is slightly tough. The M51 and Nord offer very similar color temperatures, but the Realme 7 Pro makes it slightly warmer. What the OnePlus Nord does better is control the flare from the tube light, but the other two aren't bad. However, what's important to note is the detail retention. And I'd suggest you move your gaze to the plant. You will notice the 64 megapixels IMX682 on the M51 and the 7 Pro keep the noise in favor of details. The Nord's noise compression algorithm completely smudges the details. You know what, let's do some course correction. If you were to shoot indoors, the M51 and the Realme 7 Pro would offer you better details and the Nord would offer you slightly better dynamic range correction. What would you prefer? In indoor selfies, the M51 has the best selfie of all, but the Realme 7 Pro is no slouch here. That's a good comeback by Realme. The Nord selfie looks very dull, lifeless, and frankly unattractive as well, and it is not even an accurate representation of the scene. Now, I went in with preconceived notion that the IMX 682 is going to beat the IMX 586 in low light mode, but the answer is not as simple as that. For example, in the non-night mode shot, the OnePlus Nord offers a brighter exposure overall, but the M51 offers the crispest details at close crop. The Nord comes in second with the Realme 7 Pro sample, with smudge details coming in last. But with night mode on, the Realme 7 Pro turns into a different beast. Feast your eyes on the blue colored PepsiCo logo first. You will see how clean the 7 Pro sample looks. Then move your gaze to the buildings on the rear and the sky. Realme has the cleanest image and the best noise control. M51 is my second favorite when it comes to details. In fact, the M51 has a slightly brighter exposure. Overall though, I liked the Realme 7 Pro's night mode the best. Anyway, the learning here is, while the hardware, that is the lens and the sensor combination, matters a lot, what also matters is the image algorithm. Now, the flash on the Nord is the most powerful because it brings out the details at close crop. The M51 comes in second and the Realme 7 Pro comes in last, just when we look at the details. But as far as exposure and color temperature is concerned, the Realme 7 Pro does a great job. Now, when it comes to low light selfies, the Realme 7 Pro fights back valiantly. The red facial tones on the M51 are just annoying. The other advantage on the 7 Pro and the M51 is that both of them come with a night mode, and it is actually pretty useful on the 7 Pro. If you take a look at it, the night mode selfies do look good. The Nord, in comparison to these two, actually struggles in low light selfies. Overall, I think the Realme 7 Pro's low light selfies actually look the best here. With screen flash on, the M51 beats the other two easily. It is clearly evident from the selfies here. So I have a fairly clear idea of all the three phones' cameras and where they stand against each other after this camera comparison. So if you have a very limited budget and just want a very good performance from the primary rear camera, then you really cannot go wrong with the Realme 7 Pro. Now, the Realme 7 Pro's image algorithm actually gives you incredible details, great colors, great dynamic range, and excellent low light performance as well. It is just a big pity that the Realme's engineers didn't concentrate on tuning the macro cameras or the ultra wide angle camera or the selfie camera, or even the video performance for that matter. Now, that is the biggest letdown of the Realme 7 Pro, but otherwise, if you want a great primary camera, then of course the Realme 7 Pro is great. The OnePlus Nord, on the other hand, despite being the most expensive smartphone of the three phones, actually struggles to achieve the same kind of results. But yes, you do get the best video camera performance from the front camera, and of course the nightscape performance is great too. I think that the Sony IMX 586 sensor is definitely showing its age now, and you do get better sensors in the form of the IMX 686 and of course the 682 as well. And finally, the Galaxy M51 is possibly the most well-rounded camera of all the three smartphones that we have tested today, and possibly even under the 25,000 rupee price range. You get excellent daylight shots and of course night shots as well, and the secondary and the tertiary cameras in the form of the macro and the ultra wide also take great pictures. The selfies are actually really good, and the video performance, as you guys saw, was top notch as well. So the M51 does stand out as one of the best camera smartphones under rupees 25,000, and it is an impressive set of cameras that Samsung has packed into this smartphone. But I do want to bring your attention back to the Realme 7 Pro, because again, like I mentioned, if you are strapped for budget, and if you have a budget of only under rupees 20,000, because the M51 and the Nord are both at least 5,000 rupees more than the 7 Pro, the 7 Pro's primary camera takes excellent pictures and is by far my favorite camera under rupees 20,000. So what did you guys think of this camera comparison? Do let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, this is Ershad from Mr. Phone signing off. Goodbye and Godspeed, my friends.